The world knew Lemmy Kilmister as rock and roll's indestructible sex symbol. Magazine headlines screamed the number 1,200 women. But in 2011, sitting in the dark corner of the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Los Angeles, the 66-year-old man, staring into his fourth glass of Jack Daniels, was living a truth nobody knew. By that night, he hadn't slept with 1,200 women. He'd slept with 1,423, and he'd forgotten all their names, every single one. But there was one woman's name he could never forget. Her name was Susan, and Lemmy had only 3 days left with her in his life. 3 days later, Lemmy would lose her forever. And that loss would reveal the secret of why he could never truly connect with any woman. Because Susan was Lemmy's daughter who never existed. Or maybe she did. This is the confession of rock and roll history's loneliest man. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to continue discovering Lemmy Kilmister and rock history's darkest secrets. The Ghost at the Rainbow Bar. October 1978. The Rainbow Bar and Grill on Los Angeles' Sunset Strip was the unofficial capital of heavy metal music. Every night, the same scene played out. Women walking through the door headed straight for the same table in the darkest corner of the bar. The same man always sat at that table. Leather vest, silver chains, Marlboro, and endless Jack Daniels. Lemmy Kilmister. Motorhead's bass player, vocalist, and soul. Leaning back against the wall, legs stretched out, eyes half closed. Women came, women went. Sometimes 3 different women in one night. Lemmy never said no to any of them. But he never really said yes either. He was just there. He was always there. Rainbow Bar owner Mario Maglieri would say years later in an interview, "Lemmy sat here almost every night for 37 years. Same table, same corner. Sometimes with women, sometimes alone. But he was always alone, really. There was always a searching look in his eyes, like he was waiting for someone. But that person never came." 1978 was a turning point for Lemmy. Motorhead's second album, Overkill, was still in the studio, and the band was finally starting to gain acceptance. But Lemmy's personal life was complete chaos. That year, the 33-year-old rock star felt something for the first time in his life. Fear. But this wasn't stage fright or fear of death. This was fear of fatherhood. Because Lemmy had learned that a woman named Tracy was pregnant. Tracy was one of Lemmy's irregular relationships from that period. They'd seen each other off and on for 6 months. Then Tracy had disappeared. Now she was back, but with news. "I was pregnant, but I got an abortion." She'd never told Lemmy. Only now, after it was all over, was she telling him. Why? Because she knew Lemmy wasn't ready to be a father, but Tracy was wrong. Lemmy was ready. Or at least he thought he was. After that night, Lemmy started spending more time at the Rainbow Bar. He drank more, slept with more women, took more speed. But none of it seemed to fill the void, because a thought kept spinning in his head. Could I have been a father? If I'd had a daughter, how would I have raised her? What would I have named her? These questions drove Lemmy crazy, but he didn't tell anyone. Because Lemmy Kilmister wasn't a man who talked about feelings. He was the guy who got on stage and played bass guitar, drank Jack Daniels, and slept with women. Nothing else. Or at least that's how it looked. But in 1983, everything changed. Lemmy actually became a father. It wasn't Tracy this time. It was another woman whose name has been forgotten. One night, one hotel room, one accident. 9 months later, Lemmy got a phone call. You have a son. His name is Paul. What did Lemmy feel? He said nothing. He just hung up the phone and went to the Rainbow Bar. That night, he drank more than usual. And after that night, the number of women started to increase. Because Lemmy was running now. Running from fatherhood. Running from real intimacy. Running from himself, the real meaning of 1200. In 1994, British music magazine Q magazine conducted a historic interview with Lemmy. The question was simple: how many women have you slept with? Lemmy's answer made headlines worldwide. 1,200, maybe a bit more. The media went crazy. Lemmy Kilmister was declared one of rock and roll history's greatest sex symbols. But nobody asked, why? Why 1,200 women? Why not 1,300? Why not 800? Because everyone thought Lemmy was just an oversexed rock star. But the truth was much darker. Eddie Clark, one of Lemmy's closest friends and Motorhead's tour manager, said in a 2012 interview, "Lemmy wasn't sleeping with women, really. Women were sleeping with Lemmy. There's a difference. Lemmy was passive. He was just there. Women would come, take what they wanted, and leave. Lemmy never resisted, but he never made an effort either. It was like he was providing a service, but he felt nothing for himself. I knew this because I'd talk to him in the mornings. There'd be emptiness in his eyes. 'Who was here last night?' I'd ask. 'I don't know,' he'd say. 'I don't remember.' And he really didn't remember, because he didn't care. But in 1999, Lemmy corrected the number in another interview. 'Actually, it wasn't 1,200, he said. 'It should be around 1,000. I guess I exaggerated a bit.' This correction didn't catch anyone's attention, but for those who knew Lemmy, this was significant. Because Lemmy would never lie. So why had he exaggerated? The answer was simple. Because 1,200 felt too big even to him. He'd slept with so many women that he couldn't even remember the count. And this scared him. Because if you've slept with 1,200 women and forgotten them all, you don't know what real intimacy means. And that's exactly what Lemmy was experiencing. In 2006, in the documentary film about Lemmy called Lemmy, there's a scene. Lemmy is sitting at the Rainbow Bar, looking at the camera. The question comes, have you ever been in love? Lemmy is silent for 3 seconds. Something trembles in his eyes. Then he answers, "A few times, but they all left me. Because I'm a terrible boyfriend. I was always on tour, always drunk, always with other women. Who would stay with a guy like that?" The camera shows Lemmy's eyes up close. In that moment, viewers see Lemmy's true face for the first time. A lonely man. A frightened man. Not a man who doesn't want to be loved, but a man who believes he doesn't deserve to be loved. Tracy's letter. In 2007, Lemmy received a letter. The sender's name was Tracy. Yes, that Tracy. The woman who told him she was pregnant in 1978. 29 years later, Tracy had resurfaced. The letter was 3 pages long. Lemmy read the letter at the Rainbow Bar. On the first page, Tracy apologized. "I lied to you. I didn't get an abortion. I had the baby, a girl. I named her Susan. She's your daughter." Lemmy's hand trembled. His glass fell. Jack Daniels spilled on the floor. Lemmy turned to the second page. "I raised Susan by myself. I didn't tell you because I knew there was no room for a baby in your life. But Susan always wondered about you. She listened to Motorhead, watched your interviews. She missed you. She missed a father she never met." The third page was the worst. Susan died last year. She was 27, cancer, Before she died, she wanted one thing: to see her father. But I never told you. Now it's too late. Susan is dead, and you lost a daughter you never knew. I wanted you to know this. Maybe this will change you. Maybe you'll really enter another woman's life. Maybe one day you'll be a real father. Susan forgave you. I hope you can forgive yourself. When Lemmy finished the letter, he was crying. At 61 years old, in the middle of the Rainbow Bar, rock and roll's toughest man was crying. Mario Maglieri never forgot that night. I'd known Lemmy for 30 years. I'd never seen him cry. That night, he sobbed like a child. Then he got up, came to the bar, asked for 3 bottles of Jack Daniels. "For my daughter," he said. "For my daughter I never knew." Then he drank all 3 bottles by himself. He sat there until morning. He didn't speak. He just sat. But here's where the biggest secret begins. Because Tracy's letter wasn't actually real, or at least it wasn't completely real. In 2011, Lemmy showed this letter to a close friend. The friend investigated Tracy and found this. Tracy really was pregnant in 1978, but she really did get an abortion. There was no Susan. So where had that letter come from? The answer was shocking. From Lemmy's own mind. Lemmy's guilt and regret were so great inside him that he'd created a daughter who didn't exist. Susan was the ghost of the father Lemmy could never be, and this ghost followed Lemmy night after night. Paul Inder. Real son, lost connection. But Lemmy did have a real child, Paul Inder. Born in 1983, his mother didn't tell Lemmy until the child was 2 years old. Lemmy first saw Paul when he was 4. How did that meeting go? Paul Inder told this story in a 2013 interview. "When I first saw my father, I didn't recognize him. He was a stranger to me. He gave me a toy bass guitar as a gift. 'You're going to be a musician,' he said. Then he left. I didn't see him again for 6 months. Then he came again, brought another toy, and left again. It continued like that. My father was an absent father. But I knew he loved me. He just didn't know how to show it." Lemmy and Paul's relationship was never a classic father-son relationship. Lemmy sent Paul money, sometimes visited, but could never be a real father. Why? Because Lemmy was afraid of intimacy. He could sleep with 1,200 women, but he couldn't hug his own child. Years later, Paul said, "I don't remember my father hugging me, ever. Maybe once, maybe never. But I don't remember. I only remember him on stage. He was someone else there. He was free there. But when he was with me, it was like he was in prison." In 2008, when Lemmy turned 63, he had a serious conversation with Paul. Paul described that conversation like this. "My father said to me, 'I disappointed you. I was a bad father. But you're a good person. That's not because of me. It's in spite of me.' I said to him, 'Dad, you weren't a bad father. You were just a father in the only way you knew how. And that was enough.' But it wasn't enough, really. We both knew that. After that conversation, my father cried. It was the second time I saw him cry. I asked him when the first time was. 'For my daughter, I never knew,' he said. I didn't understand what he meant, but now I do. 1,423, 0 names. In 2010, Lemmy turned 65. He couldn't perform on stage as much anymore. Health problems had increased. Diabetes, heart problems, shortness of breath. But he still went to the Rainbow Bar every night. Still sat in the same corner. Women still came. But Lemmy wasn't sleeping with them anymore. He just sat, talked, drank Jack Daniels. Mario Maglieri said, Lemmy had changed. He looked at women differently now, like he was searching for someone in every woman, but he never found that person. One night, Lemmy told a journalist, "I've slept with 1,423 women. Yes, I count now, because one day I might need to remember one of their names. But I don't. I don't remember any of their names. There are just faces. Blurred faces. They're all the same. They're all different. But none of them were real. Because I wasn't real. I was a ghost. I'm still a ghost." This confession was never published by that journalist, because Lemmy had asked that it not be published. "This is my secret," he'd said. "The world shouldn't know. The world should think I'm the rock star who slept with 1,400 women. But you know. You should know. Because maybe one day someone will tell the truth. Maybe then a young man about to become a father will hear this story and won't make the same mistake." In 2014, Lemmy's health seriously deteriorated. Doctors told him to quit drinking. Lemmy quit Jack Daniels and switched to vodka. "It's lighter," he said. But the real reason was different. Lemmy wanted to suffer now, because he remembered Susan, the daughter who never existed, and he remembered Paul, his real son, and he remembered 1,423 women. All the women he'd forgotten, and worst of all, he remembered himself, the man who could never truly connect with anyone. The last night at the Rainbow Bar, December 28, 2015. The last day of Lemmy Kilmister's life. But that morning, Lemmy went to the Rainbow Bar. Like always, he sat in his usual corner. He ordered water, not Jack Daniels. Mario Maglieri was shocked. "Lemmy, water? Is that you?" Lemmy smiled. "It's my last day," he said. "I want to be sober, because I need to remember something." That afternoon, a woman came into the Rainbow Bar. Nobody recognized her. She walked toward Lemmy's table. Lemmy looked at her. "Do I know you?" he asked. The woman smiled. "No," she said. "But I know you. I'm a Motorhead fan. And you remind me of my mother." Lemmy's eyes filled with tears. "Who's your mother?" the woman answered. "Her name was Tracy. You never knew her, but she knew you, and she wanted to tell you something but never had the courage." Lemmy stood up. "Tracy? Tracy from 1978? The woman nodded. "Yes. My mother told you she was pregnant, but she lied. She didn't get an abortion. She had me. My name is Susan." Lemmy's world spun. Susan, the girl who didn't exist, but now she was standing in front of him, real, alive. But Tracy wrote me a letter. She said Susan had died." The woman shook her head. "No, my mother never wrote any letter. You wrote that letter to yourself, Lemmy, when you had your psychological crisis, in 2007, don't you remember?" Lemmy sat down. His hands were shaking. Susan sat across from him. "My mother died last year," she said. "Before she died, she asked me to tell you something. Tell Lemmy I forgave him. Because he wasn't a bad person. He was just a person who didn't know love. And I didn't teach him that. Maybe his daughter will. Here I am, Dad, to teach you about love." Lemmy cried for the first time in 40 years. Really cried, in the middle of the Rainbow Bar, in his daughter's arms. Susan hugged him. "You're not too late," she said. "It's never too late. You're here now, with me. That's enough." That night at 11 o'clock, Lemmy went home. He called Paul. "Son," he said, "I love you. I never said it, but I'm saying it now. I love you." Paul cried. "I love you too, Dad." Lemmy hung up the phone. He lay down on his bed and closed his eyes. For the last time. The next morning, December 29, 2015, Lemmy Kilmister died The true face of the secret. At Lemmy's funeral, Paul Inder gave a speech. "My father slept with 1,400 women," he said, "but he didn't love any of them, because he didn't know love, until his last day. That day he met Susan, real or imaginary, I don't know, but it was real to my father, and it gave him peace." Maybe that's what love is. It doesn't matter if it's real or imaginary. What matters is what you feel. In Lemmy's will, it said he'd left some money to the Rainbow Bar and Grill. "Tell Mario," it said. "My corner should never be given to anyone. Let it stay empty, because I'll still be sitting there. And maybe one day, Susan will come again, and I can hug her. Really hug her." Was Susan real? Did Tracy's daughter really exist? Or was it a vision Lemmy had on his last day? Nobody knows. Because Susan disappeared after the funeral. Nobody saw her. Not even Paul. But at the Rainbow Bar, in Lemmy's corner, an empty chair still stands. And sometimes, at night, a woman sits there. Nobody recognizes her. But everyone knows that's Susan, the girl Lemmy never knew, but loved forever. Rock and roll history's loneliest man slept with 1,423 women, but he only loved one, and she might have been a ghost. But to Lemmy, she was the most real thing. Because love is more powerful than reality. Love turns even ghosts into reality. And Lemmy Kilmister, on the last day of his life, finally learned about love. Real or imaginary. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe love is always part dream, part reality. And maybe that's what makes it so beautiful. That empty chair at the Rainbow Bar still stands there. If you ever go to Los Angeles, look at it. Maybe you'll see Susan. Maybe you'll see Lemmy. Both of them there forever. 1,423 women, but only one love. That's Lemmy Kilmister's heartbreaking secret. And this secret will never be lost. Because love is more powerful than death. Even if it's just a dream,